The competitive 40K network presents Art of War.
Art of War.
Strategy and tactics. Discussions with the best players on the planet. Now your host, Nick Nanavati.
Hey everybody, welcome back to a very special episode of the Art of War 40K podcast. This is our 300th episode. I truly cannot believe what Art of War has become over the past 5 years and what all of you patrons and listeners have helped and support and what we've grown together. It is an honor and a pleasure to be part of this show and to continue doing it for you over so long. I want to really thank you for that and show it in a special way. So for today's week's episode, we don't have the usual one guest, one tournament interview style. We have the entirety of Team America. We get small segments from every single member, including the coach, and we basically get to know them. Who are they? How do they get involved with the team? What is their relationship with the team? What are they playing? Kind of how it works and all that good stuff. In part two, for those of you who are looking for a more 40K, learn the game, become your best type mentality, we're going to deep dive the good stuff, the army lists, all 8 of them, how they work and how they are on the table, along with Arthur's coaching strategy. We're also going to go into the pairing strategy that Team America employs and how we actually try to win, or hopefully have won, WTC. So since WTC is upon us by the time you are listening to this, we are going to do things a little bit differently. Part 2 of this episode is real. It's deep, and it goes into the actual approach that Team America uses. And we don't want to give that away to our enemies and our opponents ahead of time. We are going to save that for Monday and release it right after, hopefully, America has won WTC, and if not, at least once it's over. So bear with us. Enjoy part 1. We're going to break it down. You're going to get to know all the team members and all that good stuff. And then in part 2, you're going to get all of that nitty-gritty juice that you have been waiting for. Again, thank you so much for your 300 episodes worth of support and all that you've allowed Art of War to grow into. It is amazing. If you want to subscribe because you're new here and you haven't yet, check out patreon.com/AOW40K. It is worth your while. 300 episodes worth of content plus a Discord server where you can talk to all kinds of like-minded individuals, including many members of Team America and the Art of War coaching staff. Hey, Andrew, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Nick. Good to be here.
It's so good to have you, dude. You are one of my great long-standing friends in the Warhammer 40K community and my former captain for Team USA. And to have us back both kicking at it, like God knows how many years later, is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I never thought we'd be the old timers, but here we are.
Dude, that feels so weird. It feels like just yesterday I was like 15 years old.
Yep. The years go by pretty quickly in the 40K scene, and then you look back and you're like, wow, it's been a decade or two.
So you were the former captain of Team USA many moons ago, and now obviously it's under new captaincy, and things are way different than they were. How has your experience and your relationship with the team grown over time?
Yeah, it's been great. You know, I came on in, I want to say 2012. Got to meet all of the good guys, a lot of them from Ohio at the time. You know, the teams changed hands. I was like the 3rd captain, something like that. Mm-hmm. Made a lot of new friends. I remember that phase when I was the new guy trying to prove to the team that I was, you know, good enough to be there, get them to trust me. After a couple years, became captain. The leadership role is always interesting. Herding 40K players, a little bit like cats.
A little bit.
After, I was captain until 2017. I passed to Sean, our illustrious friend Sean Naden, and then I played one more year. They got me to come back, and then I decided, you know, maybe it's time to let everyone else have a chance. But that's code speech for I was very tired, and you have to take a break after a while. WTC is a lot of effort. Yeah,
it can be your full year's worth of effort and very commitment, or at least like half the year you're focused mostly on this. So for a lot of people, it is a huge take on. How have you found the process this year with your like balance of, you know, your lifestyle and also playing for the team?
Yeah, so I mean, I came back after COVID. My first year back was last year. Took a break, had a kid. It's been crazy. She's a little bit older now, and so I got back into the swing of things. And, you know, it's changed so much. I think that the game changed a lot, you know, like pre and post COVID, that gap. TTS really, like, I mean, it was around before, but it became like a more mainstream tool. The level of practice the modern team does is like very different.
Oh my God.
You know, the grinding, the reps, the data analysis, all that stuff has really changed over the years. So it's been harder to fit that in, but it's been great. You know, the team is a community, and so it felt weird without having like that constant contact with a friend group.
Right.
You still talk to people, but not as much because you're not in the same trenches as them.
You're not working towards the common goal.
Yeah. But now it's been good. It's always hard to balance. The summer's the busy season. I think John said you just have to. I get you in July, right? And I said yes. So we're here, we're grinding.
Yeah. All right. So what are you playing for Team America this year?
Yep. So this year we did a little bit of a late-ish pivot. My mains are typically defender-style gun armies. Tau, guard, that sort of thing. So this year we have the saddest of events, Ganu's Fall to Chaos. I played this game almost 30 years. This is my first foray into Chaos with Death Guard.
Oh my God.
So I'm playing Mortarian's Hammer. I have Lord of Contagion with 3 Shrouds, Lord of Virulence with the enhancement, with his 1 unit of 3 drones, his friends, the Heavy Blight Launchers. Tallyman, 2 of my favorite best boys, the Spawn, 1 unit of 2, I should say. A couple of my Fiddick Blight Haulers, I love those little crabs. 3 PBCs because it's way easier than actually interacting with your opponent. A couple unit of Poxes, and then I went a little spicy, and no one wanted CK, so I took the Despoiler.
Unbelievable. You really found your place as Gunyo yet again. So now we've got 3 Plague Burst Crawlers for indirect, the whole drone package. And now you've added a knight with battle cannons into this army with a -1 armor save contagion. It's brutal.
The keyword is blast for this army. There is a lot of shooting.
Yeah, I can imagine. So it's a pretty interesting take on meta Death Guard. You've added a knight. I imagine that's a pretty big tech piece for WTC, especially since you can pick your board choice as a defender and whatnot. How are you liking it?
I like it a lot. I mean, Death Guard are probably, maybe a little bit heavy on points right now to begin with. I will say you always wish you had a little bit more, right? There's always that battle between do I have too many guns? Do I have too much trash or too little trash? I would always love a little bit more. I like it because the Despoiler kind of adds a 4th piece of indirect in some ways because of how it interacts with terrain. And it's also just a big piece of burst damage, which can be really nice for, when the classic play, if someone's indirecting you, is to get in their face because they put you on a clock. They want to rush you. They need to scrum it up in midfield, take away some points because you're not giving them time, right? You're forcing them to activate. The Knight basically can punish that. Same with that Lord of Contagion Shroud unit. So it's in pieces that incentivize activation, and then I have burst damage to punish that activation.
Awesome. The classic shoot them, and if they come near you, then hurt them more.
Shoot them again, yes.
Great. Well, I'm sure you're going to do awesome with this army. We're going to break it down in part 2, folks. We're going to break down every other person's army on Team America. So Andrew's going to explain how this works in a little bit more detail and how his role within the team context is. So if you're interested in that stuff and you want to get better at Warhammer, check it out on patreon.com/AOW40K. Next up, we've got Sam Pope, brand new member to Team USA, first year in the Academy, and now he has made the starting roster. Sam, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Nick.
That's awesome. So happy to have you. So tell me, this is your first year in the Academy. This is your first year on Team America officially. Congrats. How have you found the whole team and the process and being a part of it?
It's been a great process. Warhammer's been something that I enjoy just broadly and have enjoyed in my time doing it. And so spending that time and this past, few months, really committing to learning a lot and practicing a lot has been a really meaningful experience to just try and do the best at something that I care about.
Absolutely. And, this is the World Championship, so the competition level is tougher than ever, and the bar and expectations and practice regime is tougher than ever. You're known as a Tyranid guru, especially in the Swarm world, and I know you've been playing a lot of not Tyranids for Team America. Tell me about that and how that's been.
It's been good. Definitely coming into Team USA, the Academy process, I was known for the... Tyranids mostly. I played a lot of different detachments, and I like Tyranids a lot. But I spent a lot of time trying to work through different factions and show that I could play different factions if needed. And then once we started testing this final meta, I really wanted to make Tyranids work, but couldn't quite get there, and that's all right. Ended up on the Gene Stealer Colts, which were a very strong, army, and are a very strong army, and fit a lot of the skills that I know from playing Tyranids. So it's been good to learn other things, and I've been enjoying it. But man, I do wish Tyranids were at that level that I could feel confident taking them at this event. But I'm happy either way.
I totally get it. When you get to play your favorite army that you're like the faction specialist on and all the stars align, it feels so good. But sometimes you got to make those sacrifices for the better part of the team, and I appreciate that you're doing that with Gene Stealer Cult here. So Tyranids just got this brand new subterranean assault detachment that I know everyone is like really high on. I'm shocked because not a single or maybe one tier 1 country brought it total. What's wrong with it?
So I think that the problems with subterranean assault is that the delivery mechanism for it is such that you are basically only hitting the front line of your opponent's units. Whatever they push forward with, you are hitting back. And you can make sure that that front line is on the objectives, so it's really easy to deny them from holding primary. But you aren't really winning the attrition battle. Tiered data sheets aren't very durable. And the damage output they need to do often requires multiple of their data sheets. So you are often ending up in a situation where you're unable to win any sort of attrition. So all you're doing is bouncing off of them on the front, pushing them off primary, and then at the end of the game, if they go second, they get like that 15 on primary, and you get a draw. And that's kind of the best case scenario for Tyranids. And so there's not too much accessibility for Tyranids to go beyond that. There's no real possibility for big wins unless your opponent makes super big mistakes. And that just limits the usefulness of Tyranids in a team comp. I don't think that they're bad, and I think they could perform as a first defender role potentially, but that's just not something that we needed as much out of the comp or the faction that we wanted me to play.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so talk to me about your army that you're actually taking this Gene Stealer Cult list. What is it?
Gene Stealer Cults. I'm playing Host of Ascension. I'm basically bringing the 4 20-man neophyte bricks with the characters in it. 1 super kill squad, 3 decent enough kill squads, and then 3x5 bikes and a whole bunch of chaff. Ridge runners for support. And that's basically the list, all things considered.
Yeah, from the quintessential classic GSC Host of Ascension list. We actually had Tucker Ricky on like a couple weeks ago talking about the nuts and bolts to it. Pretty much the same thing. How have you enjoyed playing it, and what do you think its strengths and weaknesses are broadly?
I've enjoyed playing it. I think that Gene Stealer Cults as a whole has just really solid, just like backup plan at any given point of just having so much OC in respawning models that can just go for a million 9-inch charges to deny points. That even if things go wrong and you bounce on your attack turn, you're still able to generally, with like a lone up on your natural and move blocking, hold enough points and deny enough points that things don't go too bad for you. But if things go well on your go turn and you're able to deliver all that damage that you expect, it can really put some armies on the back foot and push bigger wins, which is really impressive. I think that there's specific matchup powers for GSC into like Imperial Knights or certain armies that are like demons, just armies that don't have output or have limited units, and so I can drown them even if they're able to kill the 20 blobs. I can still drown them in bodies for long enough that it doesn't matter. That's the sort of thing that I think GSC can really shine on, and I think that helps our team comp as a whole.
Awesome. Super excited to hear that. So one last question before we head off to our next guest. What are you most excited about for Team America and this whole WTC thing?
I'm just excited to see the payoff. Folgers, Betho, and I are the 3 new players on Team USA who haven't done this before, and I think we're all excited to just see what this looks like when we get there and make it happen. We put a lot of effort and time into this, more than probably anyone on the outside could ever imagine. It's a lot of time and energy, and I'm excited to see the payoff. I'm hopeful that we do well. I'm excited to play with all the different countries and meet everyone there, and I'm just, I'm ready for whatever to happen. If we win it, I'm excited to make fun of everyone who did this before and say that it was really easy. And did it in our first try.
Well, I hope we get that experience. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast, Sam. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Next up, we've got another newbie to Team America here, but this newbie is actually the world champion of Warhammer and the returning guest, Folger Piles. Folger, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Nick. Thanks for having me as always.
Of course. Thanks so much for coming on the show. So you are your first year Academy member, and you actually got added a little bit late into the process, kind of right out on the back of your World Championship winning. And then, you've, as a shooting star does, just flown through the Academy and straight into the starting roster. How has that process been?
It's been a grind. It's been a long 8 months, but a lot of fun has been had. A lot of Warhammer been played.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you have historically played the Golden Boys Custodes, and you did super well with them, the World Championships, and then, you played a little bit of Yanari and did well there. But that's not what you're taking to WTC. I see when I look at the list for Team America, this weird army called Chaos Cult. What is that about?
Yeah, it's just a bunch of dudes living their best life and trying to walk onto the circles aggressively. It's a lot of fun. And it's kind of a meta pick for what we're expecting and have seen at WTC.
Oh, that's so exciting. We're going to get deep into that in part 2 of this episode where we cover each person's why and how their list operates and what it's trying to do for the team composition. Tell me a little bit more about how you got here, though. Like Golden Boys, Yanari, now Chaos Cult. You seem a little bit all over the place. I know you also dabbled a lot in Star Shatter. What is your 40K journey for the past few months?
Past few months has been a panicked scramble to find the army that we're going to take for myself. Big part of playing in teams is not just playing the best army that you're the best at, but playing the most army that's going to add the most to your team comp. And that's kind of the role I've been feeling. I came in a little late. We've got some established players who are rock solid on their lists. So trying to fill a niche that's going to plug the holes or some weaknesses of our team. That's what I tried to do, and this is a list that we think will do that.
Awesome. So are you jiving with this Chaos Cult army?
Unfortunately, yes.
Unfortunately, yes.
The Chaos gods have spoken to me,
and
we got him. Good.
He's converted. He's one of us now, folks. Okay, Folger, tell me about what this army is that you're actually taking. Read off those data sheets.
All right. So it's a bit of a weird one. So I'll just go down the line here. We've got Cypher, that's our warlord. Nice little lone op piece with Vectora, super good. We've got 3 dark communes. This is the DC of the ACDC. 2 of which have enhancements. One gets a Scout 6 enhancement, and one gets a cool damage buff where it does more damage when they're wounded. Then I have a Terminator and Sorcerer Armor. I have a Disco Lord on, I forget what his mount's called, but
Hellstalker.
A Hellstalker, but a Disco Lord. And then we've got a whole bunch of boys. We got 30 cultists, 20 traitor guardsmen, 3 units of the AC, which is the accursed cultist of the DC. We got 3 predators, 2 destructors, 1 annihilator. We have the little rhino, the little taxi that they all drive around in. And we got 3 nurglings.
Wow.
That's it.
So, bunch of cultists, bunch of guardsmen, bunch of accursed cultists, and 3 predators with some support.
Yep.
This is an army that I have not seen much at all. Nobody's really talking about Chaos Cult. Nobody's really running Chaos Cult. It's not new. It's been around the block for a while. Accursed Cult has been nerfed a few times. Honestly, this army looks like it's 2 years old, and we're just reviving it. How did this army even come into the conversation?
It started when we really realized that Knights was going to be a much bigger problem than we anticipated. You can't just be ooh, but I'm going to outskill the Knight player, right? No, it's the Knight player is going to walk at you and your stats are worse and you're going to die horribly, right?
Right.
So we started brainstorming answers. I was playing Star Shatter at the time. We thought that'd be a good answer, and it's a great answer to DG. But the Knights are just the bigger, badder brother of the DG, and
right.
The Star Shatter just can't quite handle that. So we started coming up with ideas. We tried, I think, Votan. We tried me on Custodes, and then we ended up trying this, and it worked the best.
Wow. I'm super excited to hear about how in part 2, but what are you most excited for as we get into the World Championships, as we lead up to the event?
I'm just ready to be there. I'm so excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. WCW last year was my first Worlds event.
Yeah.
And I've heard that this is the next level of awesomeness and camaraderie in 40K than that. So I couldn't be more stoked.
Yeah, this is my favorite event every single year. I mean, it's my 10th year going. Clearly, I'm addicted, and there is good reason. So I'm super excited you get to join us in this experience, Folger.
Me too.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
For our very next guest, we've got our final new Academy member to the starting roster team, Alex Spatho. Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks for coming on the show. You are another brand new member to the Team America Academy, and you've excelled in the process and become a starting member. Congrats. That's really impressive in your first year. How have you found the entire process and being a part of the team?
It's been super fun. So I kind of came in with no expectations, I guess, not really been a part of it. A lot of our team members are also pretty new to Team USA, so haven't had a lot of cross-pollination experience beforehand. So we kind of came in with open eyes, fresh minds, just wanting to learn and experience and kind of meet with all the great players from all the rest of the country and get games in. So that's been an amazing experience. Getting reps from quality players is like the best way to improve, the best way to learn the game, and you're not going to get it any better from the people here. So it's been a super cool experience. It's been super fun, interesting, and new. And it's just been overall great.
That's awesome. And I know you've been kind of blessed with the ability to stay more or less in your wheelhouse of factions. You know, you've been playing Space Marines forever, and now you're bringing Space Wolves to the actual event. I know you dabbled in Gene Stealer Cult and Chaos Space Marines throughout the year. How have you find the Army transitioning and, figuring out the meta for whatever works for yourself, along with how it fits into the team, that whole thing?
Well, I was actually, after selection and we were kind of going into the team comp, there was a period where I was actually very nervous because, Gene Stealer Colts have kind of fallen away from the meta. A bunch of new things kind of came around. We have one of the greatest Space Marine players of all time, if not the, with John. So I'm like, okay, well, I might not be on Space Marines. So I kind of felt there was this void of I don't know what army I'm going to play. And luckily, as we kind of kept channels open for different comps and factions, and with Space Wolves around the corner, when we kind of got the rules, I actually was able to find something I was able to vibe with. So luckily, that was very good for me. But yeah, it was still kind of in my wheelhouse. I love playing melee armies. I love playing brawlers that can kind of be fast, but also kind of duke it out with other armies.
Yeah, I love that. I know you enjoy that heavy melee pressure play style. I think Space Wolves is a great fit for you. When you have Space Marines in your wheelhouse and you have Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Dark Angels, Ultramarines, there's so many great builds in Space Marines. How did you settle on Space Wolves?
Just kind of looking at the feel. So for me, I do enjoy Blood Angels, but the way Blood Angels have played as of kind of in 10th hasn't really vibed with me. It's hard to say specifically why. It's just that thing kind of when you're on the table, you kind of know when you know.
Yeah, it clicks.
Kind of thing. Yeah, something clicks. And Blood Angels were a little finicky, and kind of leveraging the tempo with the pressure. I really didn't like that there was no real interaction on my opponent's turn. That was a big thing. You have Armor of Contempt, but otherwise you're just standing there as a T4 Marine.
Yeah.
So I very much like having to be able to flex reactives and defensives and kind of eyeball where my opponent's kind of threats are and kind of work to negate it. So Space Wolves have all of that. And they interact really well with Stormlance and Gladius, where you could flex the speed on their really fast data sheets. So you have speed, toughness, and a lot of defensives. I guess the only real weakness I would say is a lack of large offense, but you still have decent offense.
Oh yeah, no one's gonna say Space Marines don't hit hard, right? Without the moment and all that. Tell me what the Space Wolf list you're actually taking to WTC is.
Yeah, let me just grab it real quick. So I'm running Stormlance. We've seen a lot of different detachments pop up. There's Gladius. There's a lot of Beast Slayer. But for me, I was kind of bouncing between Gladius and Stormlance. I kind of didn't really vibe with Beast Slayer. We kind of didn't look too much into our exploration. So we kind of missed a little bit on looking into it. But between Gladius and Stormlance, after playing test games, I kind of realized that the strats I was using most were reactive and Armor of Contempt. And, the only really thing I was missing from Gladius was I could +1 to wound the infantry models. But as we get into the list, we'll see things like Arjac doesn't really need +1 to wound. And, most of the time you're using the +1 to wound on the TCAV anyways, which you have. So going through the list, we have Arjac Rockfist. He is for lack of a better word, my rock. He rerolls all hits, all wounds against monsters' vehicles, and his anti-monster, anti-vehicle 3+. So he kind of is like self-sufficient. He doesn't need oaths. He slams pretty hard. He'll kill most tanks and just goes around and does his thing. We have Bjorn the Fell-Handed, Dreadnought for extra CP, an Iron Priest for the rapid fire, since we're still being able to use those rules. We have a Lieutenant with Combi Weapon, and the big man, Logan Grimnar, with his Vectora. We got an Intercessor squad, a JPI squad, Infiltrators, 2 Predator Annihilators, a Scout squad, 2x6 Thunderwolf Cavalry, 1x3 Thunderwolf Cavalry, and then 2x5 of the Wolf Guard Terminators.
Nice. Looks like a really strong, balanced, flexible with Stormland Space Marine army that's very melee-centric with some fire support. What's the general strategy you use when you're playing this army?
So Stormlance, people like to call Wolf Jail, oh, it's Wolf Jail, but I'm not necessarily like trying to jail in terms of just like I'm just willy-nilly throwing myself at you and creating a wall. A lot of that you can't really do as much without the Blood Surge and all the previous tech that the Wolves used to have. It's more playing kind of like a Biley, kind of brawlery match where generally I like to play the early game and create space for myself, try and remove my opponent's trash and move blockers. And once that's clear, I'm trying to engineer a big pressure slam turn where I can put in my Wolves, I can put in Arjak or Rapid Arjak, put in Logan all at once and hopefully take some value along with me, but now give my opponent too much to chew on between being able to flex reactives, -1 to hit and wound on the Wolves while you're just engulfed in a Vectora. And then the moment you don't do enough damage, I'm Stormlance. So I could just cycle back in and out while most other armies kind of get stuck. And I could start isolating the weaker parts as like, oh, you flopped over here, which means I can now allocate these resources to shore up this weak point for me and just kind of win the grind.
I love it. Very grindy, very much your play style here. I love when that stuff aligns. What are you most excited for WTC?
I'm most excited just to experience it. So I'm, obviously being new, being my first year, I actually haven't gotten to interface with like most of the WTC and like a lot of the more veterans, like people all know each other. People are like, oh, I love this guy, everyone's excited to like kind of play with each other again. So it'd be cool just to kind of meet all these people that you hear so much about and get to play these games.
I love that. My favorite part about WTC, aside from the tournament, of course, is just the social experience. It is a one-of-a-kind event, and I'm so glad you get to share in that experience with everyone. Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Alex.
Thank you.
For our very next guest, we got return superstar to the Warhammer scene, Brian Sipe. How you doing?
Doing great, man. Glad to be here.
Glad to be here too. Thank you so much for coming on the show. So you've been on Team America for a couple years, and I know before that you played for other teams as well for the WTC. Tell me about your experience with Team America and how it's changed over time and what your role is with it.
Yeah, so I think I've seen Team USA, the best word I can use to describe it, I think, is mature over the time, both our processes and our, even simple things like admin and stuff have really kind of become solidified and better to the point where we can really focus on the things that make us better at winning the event. So the games, the practice, the structure, and it keeps getting better every single year. That's the main difference I think I've really seen. The process is encouraging a lot of new talent. We're seeing that talent grow and start to kind of blossom into the space that we wanted them to be. And that's exactly what our academy is designed to do, right? Is to pull these players from maybe not quite ready into being ready. So as we start to see that happen, that's just incredibly exciting. Shows the process is working. Yeah,
absolutely. And I know as one of the more veteran members of the team at this point, you kind of help those academy members like learn the ropes and get some practice games in, learn WTC and team format. And you have a very great analytical mind for breaking things down and helping people understand stuff. How have you found the academy members kind of handle that transition? How do you help them with that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that happen, I think, as part of this process, which is great to see people buy into, right? The first one is obviously just the practice and the mentality shift towards teams, which, a lot of people, some people have experience with teams, but they mostly focus in the single space. And so when you really shift that total focus to teams, you begin to have to become okay with certain things. Like it's okay to lose. It's okay to do takebacks in a practice game as long as you guys are both learning. It's like it's not about proving to yourself and others that you're the best one in the room. It's about finding the right solutions to the right problems and working together to make that happen. And that's something which I think I've seen a lot of academy guys, especially when it's their first time really in that space. At the beginning of the process, they might struggle with a bit, but then they really start to buy in and really make it happen, which is awesome. And then I think the second most important thing, which is, the barrier to entry, kind of get on Team USA, is just like great sportsmanship and just being kind of a really good dude or gal. And I think that is taking it to the next level is something else that Team USA really, really kind of does. And I see people buy into that more and more of like seeing how a lot of the veterans and a lot of the kind of people who have been there for a while are playing and are approaching the game and the team environment and navigating that and trying to reconcile their own personal experiences in tournaments. Like, how do I offer takebacks in an event? How do I play with intent? And then really seeing them trying to step up and hit the level that we're all trying to achieve is great, and people really adapt well into that space too.
That's awesome. I love that. Here at Art of War, we try to really preach and also represent beacons of sportsmanship to try to help grow the community. I'm so excited to see Team America also taking a very similar stance on that. What do you think the most challenging part of helping these really great Warhammer players that have seen a lot of success transition into Team USA players?
I think one of the hardest things is for all these players, oftentimes they're used to going to events and smashing it, winning every game, right? So they are used to being the best or one of the best players in the room. And when you go into a room where everybody is the best player in their respective room, you are suddenly in a space where maybe you're at the bottom of the class and you're trying to fight your way up. And that is uncomfortable for a lot of people, when you're used to winning everything. And now you're being challenged. One of my favorite sayings, if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. Mm-hmm. This is the right room for everybody, and it's like sometimes that's uncomfortable transition for people, right? And I think that's something which after time, once they become more okay with that kind of, not so much losing, but like critical analysis after a loss and really growth from that, it really helps them step up. And you can really tell when people do make that transition, it's a noticeable shift. And then their trajectory just increases dramatically too, in terms of their skills and abilities and how well they're doing.
Awesome. I couldn't agree more. I think ego management and just like that culture shock between being like the best player in your local region, even if it's not the GT level or even super major level, the resume at Team America candidates is most of us have super major wins, That's not like inherently an amazing thing right off the bat at this level. But let's transition a little bit and talk more about your army list and your preparation for the big show. I know you've been all over the place with your factions. You were playing Orcs for a while, then the new T-Suns came out, and you kind of switched over to them. But of course, as the team composition goes, there's so many great options. What was your journey like with your army list, and where did you land?
Yeah, so we were experimenting with a number of different options, I think, when we were looking at our team comp. And we knew pretty early in the Thousand Suns release cycle that was an army we were going to want in our 8. It's powerful. It's got a lot of ability to express, kind of skill and decision-making and have those positive decision-making, better decision-making than your opponent be rewarded on the battlefield in terms of points. And so then it kind of question of who would we end up have playing it. In the end, just based on how things shaked out, that ended up being me. And I played him last year as well, so I had some experience there. And then I started kind of exploring the space. So I tried a number of different detachments and relatively quickly kind of ended on Grand Coven being the space I wanted to operate in, because I felt like, Wartmeld was pretty cool. This is the one with all the goats. Wartmeld Pact is what's called. And, that one felt like it was really good at move blocking, controlling some space, but there are better armies that can do that, in our opinion, right? Especially in a team context, right? And so then I said, okay, well, what about Rubrikai? Rubrikai, I think, is generally better at doing more damage over time, but has some bad matchups and not the kind of things. One of the big gains on WC terrain, I think, is how good Magnus is and moves around the board. And the fact that he isn't as good in Rubrikai kind of ruled that out for me. And that's where we kind of landed in Grand Coven, is following that Magnus thread, right? So he's able to move around the board really well. He's very tall and able to see into ruins and draw line of sights that are really interesting and awkward for your opponent, where a lot of the traditional staging points that exist for melee armies and just in general with armies on these WC boards are just not there because he just sees into it. He unlocks the terrain almost like having Titanic without being Titanic. And that, I think, meant that I was a model I really wanted in my army. And so from there, we started building the army list out from there. And so I had Magnus and Grand Coven to accompany him. I had 4 rubric squads, 3 of which are led, 2 with Infernal Masters, 1 with the Arcane Vortex, 1 sorcerer as well as a 3rd leader with the Umbrellific Crystal, which is the teleport enhancement. Then in addition to that, I had that Naked Rubric squad I mentioned, and then a Zangor Shaman. And then the last character I have is the Exalted Sorcerer on Disca Zinch with the Incandium as that 2nd Doombolt, which feels like a really nice tool to have in my belt. Then I have 10 Zangors, 1,000 Suns Rhino, 3 units of 6 Bogoats because I'm a bad person, and 2 Mutalith Vortex Beasts.
Beautiful. Very kind of standard 1,000 Suns on the outside perspective. 18 Bogoats is hilarious and awesome. I'm glad to see that was included. Rock solid army. I think it's more about how you play it on the table, and that's really what we're going to get into over in part 2. So stay tuned for that. Brian, one more question for you before I let you go. What are you most excited for?
It's every WGC. It's always the same thing, I think, which is, the games are fantastic. They're really interesting, seeing all the teams line up, but it's about the people. These are people that have formed a community it's at the core of it is, we're really good at Warhammer, but the reality is some of my best friends in the world now are people who run WT teams that aren't necessarily Team USA, my Team USA members, teammates, So it's seeing the people it's hanging out. It's the same thing as, every tournament, but this is like WC teams. You tend to see a lot of these people every year at WC, but because they're from all over the world, you only ever really see them at WTC, right? So it's like a once-a-year gathering of all these people you're good friends with, but don't see very often.
Yeah, it's so funny. I've asked pretty much every new person or every person on the team that same question, what they're most excited for. And every single one of them has said basically the social element of it. And that's, of course, my favorite as well. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. If you are listening to this, it probably means you play Warhammer 40K. And if you're playing Warhammer, you know you need a lot of dice. Baron of Dice is where we get our dice from. They produce amazing different kinds of dice. We just recently got all kinds of different faction dice shipped to us, which we use on our stream games. But not only do they look really cool, but they're highly customizable. You can get different symbols, corners that are square, corners that are round, different shapes and sizes, different sided dice. It's all the rage. And they're customizable in color and design as well. They are so cool looking. Not only that, but they feel great to roll in your hands. I've never held dice that roll and feel this good. Not only that, but they are scientifically perfectly balanced. There are tons of case studies on people rolling thousands of dice and recording all the results that they get. And sometimes you might get a die that rolls just a few too many ones. We've all had to throw it out before. These dice are not like that. They are perfectly balanced to a T, thousands of rolls, perfect distribution. If you want to take your Warhammer game seriously and make sure the dice are not screwing you over, get some Baron of dice. For our next guest, we're going with a much more experienced veteran member and one of the leadership figures in the Team America atmosphere. We've got Anthony Violence Vanilla. Anthony, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Nick?
I'm great. Excited to have you, Anthony. So we're basically going through and talking to all the different Team America members, and you have been in a leadership role for a few years now, and you've been at this point on the team for, I think, 4 years.
Yes, this will be my 4th WTC.
Wow, okay. Talk to me about, what your role is within the context of the team now.
So at this point in the team, I am the vice captain alongside John. I was Sean's vice captain before that. I'm essentially the scrappy sergeant of Team America, right? I keep the people in line. I keep us focused and on task while the actual captain provides the overarching vision for what the rest of the team should be doing. And besides that, I represent a veteran member of the team when it comes round to round. I am our aggro boy if we can take care of me, and I keep it stable if not. And that's kind of my role in the team.
Nice, very effective. Push those big wins if we can line you up into the right targets. Otherwise, keep it stable, keep it together. And In the sense of your, sergeant role within the team, what does that actually look like throughout the year? How do you get players to improve in the game and learn WTC, especially with the American background? We don't play in this format. We don't play as many teams. It's a different culture.
Yeah, so I've probably spent more given time playing like European team events than I have any other form of event at this point, Nick. I think so. I spend a lot of the earlier parts of the year, helping onboard the academy when we first do that initial selection, going through the process alongside our head coaches and stuff like that, with like getting people up to speed on TTS and getting more familiar and acclimated with the terrain format, and then that flows into being a leading person with regards to like picking the teams for our two travel events that we typically do in the lead up during selection, and helping people get boots on the ground practice against the Euros in their places.
What do you find is the biggest challenge you experience as like a leader, coach person trying to help new members that are very talented at Warhammer, GT winners, major winners, and getting them acclimated to WTC?
I think there's it's a bit of a two-sided coin when it comes to that. It's equal parts getting people used to not being the best player in the room anymore, and driving some humbleness into a highly talented singles-based killer is always a bit of a process. And then there's the other side of the coin where you want people to get exposure to that high-level play that they may not have seen in the same ways and still feel confident in doing what got them to the dance. So it's, you're kind of balancing a bit of humbleness with a bit of, reassurance, right?
That can be a fine line, right?
Yes.
And trying to help somebody be like, okay, you're not the best person in the room. Maybe you can learn something, but also you got to be confident in yourself too.
Yeah, I need you to do what, be confident enough that you're not just panicked when you get to the table against insert, international pro here. But I also need you to not be like, I won a handful of events, therefore I am God's gift and I can't lose.
Yes. Now, there's all these different players in the academy, and then you have to narrow it down to just a starting roster of 8. And of course, then after that, furthermore, like what factions are they playing?
Yep.
What does that process look like, and how do you impact that?
So my impact on that is essentially the same as actually any of the other, returning starters. I, through the year, spent a lot of time as the person that's, in like of the captaincy, the more involved with the academy. I spend a lot of time trying to like help people guide themselves into a space where they are participating on factions that aren't necessarily something that we have covered, right? I don't need the 5th, Chaos Space Marine player. I need like the first T-Sun. And I make sure that, if it seems like we have gaps and there are people that are interested in that space but not really exploring it, it's kind of my job to like encourage them to check those things out.
Yeah, and then of course so we have faction expertise across the board. So when it comes time to picking the roster and actually creating the comp, we can bend to whatever the meta kind of dictates.
Yeah, exactly. We are, I think in singles based play, there's a lot more room to use your player skill to kind of curve out and be like, oh, well, I'll just outskill them. And I think when your end goal is to play at the WTC, you can't rely on that anymore.
Yeah.
So you can't just be like, we're going to run what we're going to run because we're enthusiastic about it. You have to be like, no, these are the tools we need, and I need you to execute on them, and making sure that we have people in positions to be able to do that is a big part of the battle.
Speaking of tools, it seems like you brought quite the hammer to WTC. What is your actual army list this year?
So I am playing the World Eaters. I am playing Berserker Warband, and my list in order is Angron, Karn, a Master of Executions with the Berserker Glaive, a pair of 10-man Khorne Berserker units, 2 Chaos Rhinos, 3 Chaos Spawn, 2 Forge Fiends, a Jackal unit, and the stars of the show, the Mauler Fiends.
You've got Mauler Fiends, Forge Fiends, Chaos Spawn, Khorne Berserkers, and Angron. What a simple but beautiful World Eaters army.
Everything but 8-pound, Nick.
I know, your favorites. So with this new World Eaters Codex, I know you've been having huge success with it, even though it plays differently to its index predecessor.
Yep.
How do you broadly view this army in the context of teams?
I think that a lot of what you're trying to do with World Leaders is actually pretty similar to the role that I've filled in the past for us, which is if you can line up the World Leaders into one of their good matchups, it is very possible that their pressure first play style, enables them to get a big score. But if you have enough experience with that pressure first play style, you can always fall back and, kind of rely on the differential system to get you to a closer, just small loss to a draw. Right. And that is kind of the space that they exist in. It's really hard to have someone with the experience to execute on that consistently. But once you do, like we get to benefit from, it's a really valuable and useful tool in teams.
Definitely. I'm very excited to see how you perform this year. What is the thing you're most excited about for WTC this year?
I mean, it's the same as it always is, right? It's, being able to go there and see all the people that we see once a year is lovely. In general rule of thumb, I think a lot of the other comps that people have taken have a bit more melee focus than we've seen from a lot of the European teams in the past. And I welcome any man to jump in the gladiatorial box with my beautiful red boys.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, Anthony.
Absolutely.
I guess now's a great time to get into my list. So I am taking Eldari and I'm playing Warhost. We've got Eldrad, Fugin, Janezar, Lycus, and the King Magan Ra all in attendance. Couldn't get every Phoenix Lord, but it's okay because we got Magan Ra and that gets all the style points. He's also super good, which I'm going to break down a little bit in part 2. Then we've got 4 units of 5 Corsairs, 1 unit of 5 Rangers, 1 unit of Howling Banshees, which of course joins Janezar, 1 unit of 10 Fire Dragons, which typically joins Tefugin, and then a unit of 5 Fire Dragons. Then I've got a unit of 5 Spiders with Power Blades, and they often join Lycus, and then I have a double gun Spider unit that does its own thing. And I have 2 units of Swooping Hawks to round out my aspect package. And then I've got 1 Wave Serpent and 1 Falcon. Now, the basic idea behind this list and the overall strategy is somewhat that it's very flexible and can kind of do whatever I need it to in the moment. I've got a lot of cheap bodies with OC to play the mission, skirmish, stall, move block, whatever I want. I fire and fade into and out of the Falcon with Magan Ra and the Dark Reapers, and that allows me to reroll wounds, which is great. And I can fire and fade the 10 dragons or Skyborn Sanctuary, the 10 dragons, to continually use them over and over into the Serpent. Then I've got some countercharge with Lycus. I've got some speed as well. Janezar and Lycus are super fast along with the Spiders. And overall, it's just an army that allows me to play Warhammer the way I want to, using movement and tactics to outmaneuver and take advantage of my opponent's positional mistakes rather than just beat them at raw power on the table. But it's still Eldar, it's still WTC. Don't get me wrong, I have all the raw power I need. And since we asked everybody on the team, I guess I'll answer it myself. The thing I am most excited for is, of course, the social element. I think I've said that so many times in this episode already, but I'm going to say it again. It is a one-of-kind tournament experience, and I'm so honored and excited to be there. But now let's go and head over to our next guest. For our next guest, we've got a brand new member to Team America and a person who I'm very excited to have on team for a role that goes a bit underappreciated. We've got our tactical coach, Arthur, too. Arthur, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for coming on the show. So tell me, Arthur, what is your relationship with Team America as the tactical coach? You've been our coach for about a year now. What does that process look like, and how are you finding it?
Yeah, so joined around December of last year, right when the academy members were coming in. And I started as an academy coach. So my initial job was to take a lot of players who have a lot of singles experience, maybe a little less teams experience, and teach them the differences between the singles and the teams game. And then from then on, after that, after we started selection, then I shifted over to doing tactical coach, which means kind of monitoring through how the round is going, seeing how players are doing to their games, telling people where and when they can adjust their play styles and play patterns to help kind of achieve the overall team objective.
Right. So, like, at the actual event, if some person is like, we're losing a game and we need to make up for it as a team, you're kind of the bridge of communication and information that helps us make that determination of who has to push or get aggressive to make up for it.
Exactly. I mean, in a team game, 40K, 8 games going on, you try to make predictions. You try to be as close as you can to what you think is going to happen, but variance is going to happen. So, if one table is doing a little worse and one table is doing better, you kind of help connect the team together so that they're playing one cohesive round.
I love that. So talk to me a little bit more about your transition period in the beginning portion of the year, that December to now time period when you're helping America figure out who it's taking and what armies they're playing. It's a wild time after like the balance data slate in June and list submission and even selecting starters just before that. What is your thought process and rationale for what makes a good Team America member and what armies they should be playing?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question, and it's very different people have different answers. Our starter selection was quite a difficult choice, this year. You remember, Nick, we spent almost 3 hours just talking through all the different academy members and who might be best for the team. And it often comes down to kind of team comp. So like how many pushes you need, how many blunters you need, comes down to what factions we think are going to be good in the meta. And we're trying to make that determination often for the data slate. And then once that starter selection is happening, there's the whole process of testing different lists, trying to assign roles to people, trying to predict what's going to be strong in the meta and what we have to counter. It's a very interesting and very nerve-wracking stage because you only get kind of one chance to get it right to submit your list, and then afterwards you're seeing how close you got it.
Right. After everyone submits their list, you're like guessing at the meta, and then lists go live, and you just see where you landed.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's fun. Okay, so talk to me about like what your ideal composition is for Team America. Of course, metas and players are withstanding, but some people, there's attackers, there's defenders, there's scrum people, blunters, pushers, lots of different roles within the team. Contextually, what do you think is an ideal team composition?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in my opinion, and again, opinions might differ, right? I generally like to have 3 to 4 pushers on the list, right? Because you want people who can just go out and get you points. And sometimes, those are the people that are going to give you your outs when you hit a bad matchup or kind of just don't align properly with the team, right? You need at least 1 to 2 blunters, right? Who are going to be there to, hey, this army, these guys are bringing some stuff that might not be very good. These are people almost more of a set mentality of, hey, I got to go scrap for points in matches where I'm disadvantaged, right? Mm-hmm. And some people love doing that, and it's great to have a couple of those on every team. And then I like to have kind of 2 or 3 flex roles, right? People that can take one role or the other. And these people you kind of slot in where they end up fitting best depending on your team's matrix.
Great. Now, last question. How do you think our team composition landed with respect to all the different team comps that are out there and now that all the lists are live?
You know what? I think we did really well. It's going to, time will prove whether I'm right or wrong.
That's the hope.
It looks like we know we're doing, but there's a lot of there's a lot of head scratching and a lot of soul searching right up to the deadline. I'm happy where we landed. Obviously, Knights are a big boogeyman in the meta, and the choice of whether to take them or not. Team America's landed on not taking them. And I think I'm very happy with where we ended up with the team comp.
That's awesome to hear. I'm excited. Hopefully, by the time we're there, this actually comes to fruition. We end up doing really well.
That's right.
So, talk to me, Arthur. One last question. What are you most excited for? It's your first time going to WTC.
Oh man, that is a great question. I've heard a lot about the atmosphere. I heard a lot about the competition. I'm looking forward to meeting all of these, famous players. I just hear a lot about the atmosphere there, the camaraderie. We're all there to compete, but we're all there to enjoy this game of Warhammer. And I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing how people perform under the pressure of the lights.
Great. Yeah, I can't stress enough how much I'm just a fan of the social element of it. Of course, the competition's amazing and fun and why we go, but the friends you make along the way are just as important, if not more.
Absolutely.
All right, Arthur, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Nick.
For our last and final guest, we've got the one, the only Captain America, Mr. John Lennon. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Nick?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Okay, so we've gotten through every single person, including Arthur, our wonderful coach here, trying to talk about, what their process has been like getting ready for Team America. Obviously, we have different people in different positions within the team, veterancy and newbies. So, John, you're the captain. You've got to manage all the different people, all the egos, all the different lists, all the combinations. Tell me a little bit about your perspective in the lead up to the event, list submission, after list submission, as we actually get to Europe.
Oh, boy. So this is my first year serving as captain of Team USA. While I wouldn't say that it's not what I expected, there is more to it than I expected. And just the amount of management and boxes to check and things to do and responsibilities that are added on, it definitely, it added up. But I have to say that the most important part of it all has honestly been the support staff, has been the rest of my team, between, my vice captain, Anthony, between, Arthur, and also just all the players that I work with on the team. It has been manageable, even though I got to say there are a lot of boxes to check when it comes to getting a team ready for WTC.
What's been your guiding principles and mantras, if you will, for directing the team? Obviously, there's so many decisions from list composition to what the team is bringing in total to how we played on the table and sportsmanship. What drives us?
Yeah, The two biggest things, honestly, is do it the right way, which is that in every step we do, I try to make sure that we actually follow the process the right way to the best of our ability. And this reflects in everything. It reflects in how we're going to test lists, both in, I want to make sure that we are actually testing lists, that we don't pivot at the literal last minute with no reps. I would rather we always, go through a process. And also in how we play on the tabletop, where we are going to try to represent ourselves to the very best of our sportsmanship capabilities, in addition to how we represent ourselves as players on the table, to make sure that we represent the United States well. As well, trust the process. There's a lot of frustrations and troubles and, pitfalls when it comes to organizing WTC for all members of the team. And so I really want everyone on the team to buy into the fact that the work is going to be worth it, that we are going to get a good result out of it, and we are going to just go do our best, because at the end of the day, as much as we're putting a lot of emphasis on the results, because every team that tries to win is putting a lot of emphasis on the results, I do also want to maintain an element that it is not just about winning. Our success or failure at WTC is not purely tied to our final placings. There are ways that we could get first place and I would be dissatisfied with how the team performed. There are ways where we could get, first, third, fifth, seventh, 11th, and I would still be proud of the team. And so making sure that the team is committed to each other, to the teammates, that everyone is supporting each other, everyone's having a good time. For most of us, this is a hobby. Even those of us who have 40K as a day job, this part, WTC, is not the day job. And so I need to make sure that all members of the team are committed to the group, to the players they're going with, as well as the long-term success of Team USA and the reputation of Team USA, and that those aspects are actually more important than our placing in just this year.
What would you say has been your biggest challenge in captaining the team for your first year?
Probably our Eldar player.
Yeah, that guy sucks.
Other than Nick, of course, who's wonderful. The biggest challenge has just been staying on top of everything. I'm not the most organized person in the world, and so I have very much employed the help of many organized, put together people to make sure that the ship is all going in the same direction.
Yeah.
That for me, it's been all of the non-40K aspects of it. Once we got past that final rules cutoff, we know what we're playing with. We've got the June FAQ. We have all the codexes that are coming out. Once it's just 40K, I got that.
Yeah, I know you do. And you got that in a way that no one else seems to, because you were the only Emperor's Children player maybe in the event?
No, there are 6 of us, but I'm the only one of the tier 1 nations.
Yes, okay. So tell me about the Emperor's Children list you actually took to the tournament. Just read it off for me.
Absolutely. So the list that I'm bringing to the tournament is Lucius the Eternal, 2 winged demon princes. One serves as my warlord, the other has an enhancement, the Pledge of Unholy Fortune. Then I have 2 Lord Exultants and a Lord Cacophonist. After that, we have 2 squads of 5 Tormentors. These are my infiltrating battle line. And after that is 2 squads of 5 Infractors. They're each going to be attached to a Lord, and they're usually going to start the game embarked in a Rhino, because I have 2 Rhinos. After that, 3 squads of 6 Noise Marines, 2 Blastmasters in each, of course, and then I wrap the list up with 2 Mauler Fiends with Magma Cutters.
Awesome. We are going to break that list down in detail in part 2, along with all of the other lists and how they're going to be used in pairings. So please subscribe to patreon.com/AOW40K. You'll get access to this part 2. It is our 300th episodes. You get access to 299 other episodes and all of those part 2s, along with the Discord server where you can talk to most of the members of Team America, including John, the captain, directly. Now, John, I have one more question since you are our final guest for today's episode. If you had a piece of advice you could give a Warhammer player, not that's looking to generically get better. I'm going to switch it up for you. If you had a piece of advice that you can give a Warhammer player who's looking to specifically get better at teams and eventually make their own national team, whether it's America or some other country, what would that be?
If you want to be the best, you've got to beat the best. If you're trying to get onto like a national team that you're not currently a member of, I know it's very tempting to say that you want to, like, oh, I want to go beat the members of my country by like being better than them, and that is a good way to do it, but you have to compete head to head with them to do it. And so honestly, the best way to do that is to actually be friends with, or to form some kind of relationship with those people. Now, that doesn't mean you need to, show up to their house with flowers, But if you want to get better at Warhammer and you want to qualify for that kind of a team, you have to play against the very best players available. That is by far the best way to grow. Sometimes that can be on TTS, depending on your location relative to other members of your national team. Sometimes that just means playing against the best players from other countries, wherever you have a chance, traveling a little bit more to both singles and teams events. But the best way to learn from players better than you is to play them. And learning from players better than you is the best way to get better than them.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the show, John. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's been a pleasure being here.
Listeners, thank you so much for listening. 300 episodes. I literally can't believe it. We're coming up on beyond 5 years, and we can't do it without all of your endless support for the show. Thanks so much. Subscribe at patreon.com/AOW40K for part 2 of this podcast, and we'll catch you next week.
Like what you just listened to? Check out Art of War Down Under and Art of War Unbroken on the competitive 40K network. The Art of War 40K.com.